Rika. How are you doing today?
Hi, Peter. All good, great, fantastic. How are you?
Oh, it's just cannot be better. I think it is just I'm preparing mentally for the great day today, and we have the great guest, by the way. So just that will be a phenomenal discussion, I believe, today.
Yeah, fantastic. So first of all, before jumping into our guest, introduce him and start the conversation. Just quickly, people who hasn't subscribed, please scan the QR, go to our YouTube channel, the BIM Cafe, blah blah blah. You know all the story behind. We need your support to make these initiatives happen and keep rolling with quality and the time that it deserves. So give us that like and support and on the level, because it's free. Now you don't need to just click a couple of buttons. Something else to add, or we crack on our guest?
We're doing great, guys. So just thank you very much for your continued support. We reached 1,000 followers on LinkedIn on our page. We have more than 8,500 newsletters, subscribers, and we try to go on the YouTube, guys. The YouTube is our new mecca to go really and just try to get the new records. 1,000. We try to go for the 1,000 by the end of June. I never thought in my entire life that I will just be doing the YouTube stuff. That's good.
Fantastic. Well, let's jump into our guest today. Coming from a rainy London today, Paul Wilkinson. Hello and welcome on board.
Hi, Paul.
Good to be here.
Great to have you. Thank you for accepting us, and thank you for being with us today. Great to have you. We will be talking about a very tough topic today. It's just not, it's very difficult from the moment when the people invent the interfaces between the different systems, I think, really.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about interoperability, aren't we?
Yeah, we will. My God, that's a good one. Enrique, floor is yours. Just try to go ahead with the flow, how we will just go for today.
Fantastic. So, Paul, welcome again to the BIM Cafe. How you enjoy our conversation now together. We prepared this simple structure to go through today. After your presentation, I want to talk a bit general terms about the digital transformation that the AC industry is suffering, and what is your view on that as a experience as a consultant on the role, and then focus a bit on the GIGA, the government interoperativity. I forgot the second I. This standardization body that you're working with to create and present the Interoperativity Code of Practice, which is the main topic that we have today on board. So first of all, I'm going to give you the floor, as I said, and introduce yourself to our viewers.
Okay. Yeah, I've been working in the AEC O sector, include operations in that as well. Since 1987, I worked for a firm of consulting engineers for a few years, then another one, and then worked for an IT business for nearly 9 years, which got me immersed in software as a service based construction collaboration technologies. And it was a simple step then to be talking about BIM and other areas of information management. I've been an independent consultant since 2009. And amongst other roles, at the moment, I chair the technology group of what was the UK BIM Alliance, which was rebranded as NEMA last October. And mainly the relevance to today is I'm a consultant with the GIG, a group formerly known as the Government and Industry Interoperability Group.
Okay, so it's not a geek group, it's a GIG, right?
We are just the GIG, yes.
Okay, no, it's good. It's great. I can see the great steps in your career, and I'm really happy that you moved to the SaaS, which is really, I think that I believe this is the future of all of the industries, and the construction is one of the latest, which is trying to adopt the everything as a service. So I know, great career. Let's talk about this difficult topic today, which is the interoperability. How we would like to tackle it, and I can tell you my personal story. I remember when I joined one of the industrial businesses, and we have a couple of the different machines from the medical sector, which we said, okay, let's right now make it sure that they can talk to each other so we can exchange the information. And that was really on the technology level, not really even on the patients, etc. And that was mainly impossible, to be honest, because the technology was so difficult, so different, and the protocols were so different. So everybody was saying, you know, from the management team, everybody said, yeah, let's do the yeah, it will be talking. And then when you go on the engineering side saying, nope, that's not possible.
Yeah.
So that's my experience from the field part, you know, 20 plus years ago. So I saw that's already changed. We have a lot of different stuff coming in on the market and how it works, but it's still, you know, you can break your neck on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a major problem for a long time. I recall being at an industry conference more than 20 years ago where we were talking about poor interoperability. And we're still talking about poor interoperability 20 years later. It's not really been tackled, but that's symptomatic of an industry which has been very slow in making that digital transformation journey.
I think we were on the same conference, man. I think that just guarantee you that.
Maybe that conference is happening actually all across our networks simultaneously during the last years, no? Because we all seem to experience the same problem. Before we tackle this time for real the interoperativity issue, Paul, I want to just have a quick chat draft about the digital transformation itself, about the communication and collaboration, because those two C's with the coordination, we believe they're the core, and we were defending it along with BIM for the industry. So, in your experience, in your wide experience already, have you seen any changes, or what problems has it been unsolved? What is your view, like where we're today compared to 20 years or 15 years ago?
Well, I think it's undoubtedly we've seen a huge amount of change. When I first went into an office for the consulting engineering firm, people were working on drawing boards. They were using paper. You know, it was very much a paper-driven industry in terms of design and exchanging information. By the time I left, those drawing boards were more or less redundant. They'd switched to CAD. You know, so I saw in the space of just 7 or 8 years at that company, the first stages of that shift towards digitizing some of the work that they were doing. Essentially, though, they weren't exchanging information. They were just making it a little bit more productive. But if we look at some of the surveys that we've had over recent times, you know, despite the advances that we've had with the internet, the World Wide Web, mobile devices, the construction industry still lags behind every other major industry. You know, McKinsey talk about digital transformation. They have a digitization index, and depending upon which McKinsey survey you look at, construction lags behind agriculture and hunting in America, or is just above agriculture and hunting in America. And in Europe, it's right at the bottom. Even agriculture is more digitally advanced than construction in Europe. So, you know, there are some major challenges. So, you know, this is really where, you know, I've been fighting these battles for a couple of decades now, trying to help the industry improve and look at, you know, in some cases, the transformations which have happened in other spaces and see what we can learn from them.
Yeah, no, I think, Paul, you're right. And then just we know we talk about a lot about this different McKinsey reports and BCG reports and all of the other reports. The one things which we still cannot, and I think I see the driver, and we repeating this for the last year and a half with Enrique here, because on the second season of the BIM Cafe, we were trying to find the money. And to be honest, you know, we went through the different type of people. We went through the architects, the construction managers, the people who just build the software. And that was not very easy to find, easily challenge them with getting the extra profitability or extra productivity from the operations, right? Mm-hmm. So I think one of the problems what we see is that we are not able to bring the extra productivity. So that's the reason why we are just lagging behind. I think the construction business is one of the oldest it's oldest in the world in terms of the models. And if the guys do not see the profits which they can bring through the digitization going through, they will not do it, right? And maybe they are right. Maybe we try to push them towards the direction which is not necessarily a good one.
I think historically, IT any kind of investment in digital technology was for a long time seen as an overhead, and an overhead cut into the margins. And so, many construction businesses were constrained in what they could spend. This is sadly a low margin industry, and it's difficult with those low margins for people to invest to create extra value. I think where organizations have been encouraged is when they've got clients that start to demand a more joined up approach, and start to demand digital technologies as a key requirement for projects. When the client starts asking for it and is willing to pay for it, that's when you start to get some change.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm just will challenge you a little bit with this low margin. I hear what you said, and the low margin on the airport is still bigger than the high margin on the tomato, right? I'm just I know that I need to sell a lot of tomatoes with the high margin, etc. But I hear what you're saying, but I think the model of the whole economy is just, again, we're going to the different direction, not to the BIM one, but is the capitalism or is the democracy, etc. Is this models are really will be staying for a long time, right? And just and I heard one of the guys which I visited on the conferences I saw on the conference, he was talking about moving from the growth, the continuous growth and the continuous improvements, etc. He was talking more about the flourishing. So we try just to get the benefits of the existence and try just to use them, and not instead of just growing and growing and growing, trying just to show ourselves as nature. Anyway, different debate, but I hear you about the way that why this is difficult. I think we haven't still find the answer with Enrique, but one day we will get there. I hope.
Perfect. One last question from my side, Paul, to recall something you just said before we jump into the interoperativity topic. You said that you've been fighting or working on this industry for 20 years. And I said, Jesus, I've not been far as a couple of years now doing this kind of role of talking about BIM digitalization and fighting these things. And it's really exhausting. So do you really, what is your motivation? I don't want to say you're crazy, because I don't think you are. Like, what is your motivation to keep fighting this giant monster of the construction industry? Do you get exhausted, or you really believe on the change afterwards?
I think just repeating what I said a little bit earlier, I've seen a lot of change, but we haven't reached the destination yet. There is potentially some kind of nirvana further down the road, and I would love for us to reach that nirvana. And so I will carry on evangelizing in the hope that we reach that point. But it's going to be a long journey, but you have to start making some steps. We've taken a lot of steps, but compared to other industries, we've got to do some catching up. So it's not like we're still at the beginning. We're some way still. We've made some good progress down the road. But we could put our foot to the floor a bit more and accelerate.
Agreed.
Fantastic. Well, so let's jump into the hot topic today. What do you guys think? Interoperativity, and why is it a problem, and why we need to tackle this.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a book about collaboration technology, which was published in 2005, and shortly before that, going back to the conference that I mentioned 20 years ago, there was talk, particularly in America, about how poor interoperability was holding industry back and costing, particularly the asset owner operators, huge sums of money every year. So there was a study in the United States which conservatively estimated that poor interoperability cost the businesses there some £15 billion a year, every year, and that was the costs of either trying to avoid poor interoperability, mitigating the effects of poor interoperability, or the big one, delays due to poor interoperability. You know, and if we extrapolate that to another economy like the UK, in 2002, that would have been the equivalent of £1 billion a year in an industry. You know, so that would have taken 1% of gross value add from the construction industry. You know, so it's a big number. You know, if you look at it, you know, other surveys have identified that poor interoperability adds 3% to project costs and adds 3% time to project schedules. And it also takes up a huge amount of individual practitioners' time. You know, even the government has identified that some of its civil servants spend, you know, as much as 2/3, maybe even 80% of their time managing inconsistent and poor quality data.
That's a significant number. So if you look at the size of the some of the constructions business, some construction projects, yeah, it was very significant. You're right. But from the other side, you know, this is you know, if the people do not see the interest, you know, and even if you start to think about it, maybe this interoperability will just bring extra cost into the equation, not only the savings. So because you need to put some processes, some systems, some reflection, which will generate extra cost on top of it. Usually it's like a hidden cost, which you cannot talk about it. This is what we are thinking, you know, the Gmail is free. No, it's not free. Bloody hell, it just takes a lot of energy out of the grid each day, right? Because you're sending the mail, it costs you some of the watts just of the energy coming. So no, it's not free. So what's your point about this? Is there any extra hidden cost when we think about the decent exchanges and interoperability?
I think there are huge, not just costs, but delays and impacts on inefficiency. Enrique's got the next slide that I was going to talk to, which relates to a survey that the GIGA did last year, and we asked respondents what challenges they'd experienced in terms of use of proprietary solutions, which were sometimes hampering exchanges of information with other proprietary solutions. Open standards has to be the way forward. Because, you know, the survey, as you go down this, you can see that people were finding it hard to access information held in proprietary formats. They had problems in using information which had been created with older or different versions of softwares. They incurred additional costs, obviously exchanging, accessing and using information supplied by other people. They found it was time consuming. You know, this is an industry which is prone to delay, and part of the cause of delay is often the need to exchange, access and use information which isn't in the right format in the first place. And, you know, fundamentally, there's also the issue about poor quality, poor accuracy, or incomplete information simply arising because we're not adept at exchanging information securely and reliably so that it can be trusted.
So it's just what how I can read this graph, if you can just help me to really understand it. So can we just go for some of the items there, just to make sure that it's just a little bit more talkative to me? Sorry for just being, you know, trying to.
Yeah, we asked people if they'd experienced any of these challenges. So you know, the longer the red bar. So if you take the one up from the bottom, it was time consuming to exchange, access and use information. So a large number of the respondents in the survey had experienced this problem, either always or sometimes. So, you know, it was a significant challenge to them. And the same with the experiencing inadequate quality, accuracy or completeness of information. You know, these are challenges. If you don't have trusted data, you can't do the great things that many project teams aspire to do.
So if I can challenge this a little bit, this is something which is, of course, it's based on the sentiments, right? It's based on your opinion as a person, right? So I think that's, of course, that makes a lot of sense, because this is how you feel, but it's not really the hard data, right? So it's just not
It
really.
it was from, we had several hundred respondents to the survey. So
this is great. So just from the statistical perspective, this is statistically representative from the field.
And I think when I go to conferences, when I talk about interoperability, there are nods across the room. Everybody experiences challenges when it comes to exchanging information, whether that's BIM, or whether it's authored information for design purposes, but it can also be exchanging information held in a whole variety of other formats for other purposes, whether we're talking about geospatial data, survey information, whether we're talking about, in some cases, even written information or spreadsheets. Sometimes the spreadsheets are prone to error and failure. People miss key things, and I think when you get also the transfer of information from a project environment through design and construction to the operational team, there is often a big disconnect between how information from the design and construction process, how that's taken on by the people who need to manage a facility or an asset throughout its operational life. We're not delivering whole life value if we can't deliver reliable information to those people.
Clear. I think, Paul, no, I got that one. I understand, but my point is more about the survey, for sure. It shows the feeling, and it shows the way how the industry is positioning itself. But I think the next steps for me really will be try to understand the next level of how can I fix it, right? Because if you talk about okay, the systems are not. Okay, let's go into the level down. What are really the key elements for this interoperability problem which doesn't work? What are the elements which we need to fix it? And just going one by one, try to do this and start to measuring it. I think that's something which will be really the more interesting for me than and potentially really understanding what the people thinks. And again, I'm just an engineer, so I try just to find something very concrete and how I can improve it, how I can measure it, right?
Yeah. Well, if we look at the work of the, we developed a code of practice to address interoperability, and the main, obviously the main thing we're trying to achieve is to achieve better interoperability, but there are also some underpinning principles that support this, and I think this is where it starts to explain why interoperability is important. So we have, for example, longevity. It's about ensuring that information has a long duration, it can be used for a long time, and it's reliable. It's about having information which is secure, so we can securely exchange information, and be confident about that information is managed with appropriate regard to personal data, to confidentiality, and to the security of potentially sensitive information. We're talking also about how interoperability will support information ownership, so that the client can take control and use the information throughout the life cycle of their assets, and extracting value from that. This is all about feeding the value cycle, so that as people compile information during the planning and design and construction of a project, they're progressively adding value to that information, and so that they're then in a position to hand over a complete view of the asset, completely documented, accurately documented, so that it can then be properly managed throughout its life cycle by the owner. And it's also about competition. Here we are seeking to ensure that more people can compete in the game. This is about collaborating on the rules and then competing in the game, as I've heard it described, so that more people are able to compete on projects, not simply because they own the high-end BIM application, but they have the capability of delivering information in the right format at the right time to the right specification required by their customer.
Yeah, no, I like the way how you just showed the pillars. I think that's really just very easy and very good to understand. And if I understood well, so just you have the interoperability, and you have also the 5 pillars which are important and related to the interoperability. They are not exclusive, right? So that
No, and also underpinning those pillars, the Code of Practice has technical requirements. So, there are some practical steps that organizations can take in specifying what they need from their technologies and from their suppliers, so that they can also begin to evaluate to what extent the suppliers' technologies and the technologies themselves are compliant with the Code of Practice. So, we're trying to help people make practical steps forward and specify things in more detail than they do at the moment.
Clearly. Do I read well on your profile that you just you wrote the book? It's just that was something on your agenda, right? Or just what was about this?
The book was called Construction Collaboration Technologies, an Extranet Evolution. So it was published in 2005. And at the time I was working for what today we might call a common data environment provider. At different times, they've been called extranets, construction collaboration platforms, electronic document management systems. So there are a host of different terms, but the word evolution has been there all the time because they've constantly evolved. And what used to be platforms for exchanging drawings and documents are now platforms which are increasingly used for exchanging models and managing the workflows around BIM.
So no, I hear you. So if you will just write this book today, what will be the biggest changes which you will make there in the whole concept? You spoke about the evolution, transitions, digital part, etc. But if you will just, again, I don't ask you to write it. I'm just, maybe that's a good one, the version 2 of it. But what will be the 3 major points which you will completely just rephrase it and change different? You put it differently.
I think when I wrote the book, software as a service was still in its infancy. People weren't used to accessing information through browsers. They were hesitant about using cloud-based technologies. They thought it wasn't secure. The traditional environment was to have all the information inside your firewall on your laptop, something you could tangibly hold. Entrusting it to a cloud-based server environment was alien at that time. So we've seen a major transition. One of the other major transitions was accessing across devices. Back in 2005, we didn't really have smartphones. Smartphones are relatively recent innovation, so are tablets. And we've now got access to cloud, with greater connectivity as well. Many of us are now working remotely, highly mobile, and are very reliant upon information. And this has heightened the interoperability issue in some cases because some of the devices are just not able to access the information that users want. The ideal scenario is one in which the right information goes to the right person at the right time. They can access it with the right applications they have on their device, on their chosen device at the right time, and make the right decisions. In many cases, things fall down because the technology at the moment doesn't help them make that joined up approach, doesn't help them with that joined up approach. or they don't get the information at the right time, or the information they get is wrong, inaccurate, or there's too much of it, or there's too little of it. A lot of it can be hampered. This is really where we need to be focusing on how do we deliver value.
It's very important. Sometimes too much information also is not good, right? You spend the time, excuse me, filtering or understanding. And I see all this, Paul, also interoperativity issue. It's not just having one file and being able to open with different software. It's about how to transfer the information on the way around and don't losing the quality of the data out there. And in a way, one of the pillars that we showed before, and just put on the screen again, the competition, that was one. So in a way, correct me if I'm wrong, where you guys are trying from the gig to writing the code of practice is in a way to set in the general rules for the game of all these players in terms of doing the things right and standardized and accessible for everyone. So not having your own small silo or technology or software or whatever to stay away.
I mean, we're encouraging open standards approaches. We're not reinventing the wheel. Many of these standards, most of these standards already exist. The Code of Practice was written particularly from a UK perspective, so it reflected a lot of the standards and good practice that's been adopted across government at a very broad level, but also lots of digital data and technology related work. We've had digital strategies, data strategies, geospatial strategies. So we were looking at some of those. And then on the construction side, we've got government construction strategies, things like we talk about construction playbooks, we talk about roadmaps. So there is a transforming infrastructure performance roadmap. So that the construction playbook and the roadmap together, they constitute UK government construction strategy. And both of those elements, they talk about the need for interoperability. They talk about further embedding digital technologies into our construction projects. And they talk about better whole life outcomes. It's not just about making it easy for designers and constructors. It's about making it easier for clients to get the business outcomes that they want from their assets.
Wow.
Perfect. Sorry, I jumped in, Peter.
No.
I have also some one of the slides as well showing to whom is intended this code of practice. You already mentioned we have here the main points: technology provider, asset owner, operators, and supply chain organizations. Focus on the UK. What those agents should be changing from the way they do the things to apply the new play rule, the new code of practice?
I mean, we had 3 audiences for the Code of Practice, and the working group that wrote the Code of Practice included people from all of those backgrounds. Half of the Code of Practice working group came from the technology providers because we needed expertise in what they were delivering. But it wasn't, and that included also facilities management and asset management perspectives as well. So it wasn't just design and construction. But the fundamental from all of this is really, I think the asset owner operators are in the prime position to influence their supply chains. They're going to be procuring consultants, they're going to be procuring contractors to deliver their projects. And in that procurement process, they should be specifying the need for open standards-based information so that they get the information they need to operate and maintain their assets and get full value from them. So they can use their contractual purchasing power as leverage to influence change in the industry. So that's really where the key driver is going to come from, I hope.
So when we talk about it, I see a lot of progress in the way how you structure it. But if you try just to envision the role of BIM in the next 5 years, personally, I found it a little bit passé and just a little bit, just people were talking about it. We haven't really just had a lot of benefits. I think it's becoming like a term which is not anymore sexy. So how you see really these things coming in the next 5 years for the industry, for both for UK and internationally? Any impact of BIM into this whole play?
I think BIM adoption is slowly growing. There will be some surveys which are completed by the BIM enthusiasts, and they're always going to say we're doing 90% BIM or 70% BIM. The reality on the ground is probably it's more like 30% BIM across the broader range of industry. But if you were to say, are you doing information management? I'd say it's probably 100, more or less 100%, maybe 90%. There'll be some people who are still working with paper and writing things on the backs of envelopes and stuff like that. But we're all information managers now, and the use of email, sending documents, sending spreadsheets, managing digital imagery. These are all information management processes. And this is where interoperability creeps in there as well. We need to be able to exchange information in a huge variety of formats to enable a wide range of workflows. It's not just about the building information modeling aspect. It's that whole aspect of information management. And I think, as in our daily lives, we're often using very sophisticated apps on our smartphones and tablets to do very routine things. And it's sometimes frustrating that the things we take for granted in terms of information being literally at our fingertips. We can tap on a screen and pull up a piece of information about maybe me catching a train into central London. I can see a train going across the railway line in front of me at the moment, and I can tell you what time that would get me to London Bridge. But I wouldn't be able to do the same thing if somebody's presenting with a schedule. I wouldn't have any reliable information to say that lorry is actually going to deliver that set of that load of concrete to my construction site in the next few minutes. We don't have that sophisticated just-in-time delivery type logistical capability in many of our projects yet. But I'm hopeful that some of that will come in the fullness of time. So not just BIM, but just a lot more joined up thinking and a lot more joined up technology to help us get there.
And why is that, Paul? Why we don't? I like this example. Why don't we have this such a precise and use of technology on the construction side? The example about the train and the truck and the lorry is perfect. No, why don't we have this?
I think a lot of it is down to how fragmented many of our project teams are. We talk a lot about tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 project teams. Tier 1 contractors in the UK are the big main contractors. They're then working with a set of suppliers. Those suppliers or subcontractors are then working with subcontractors and suppliers and manufacturers downstream. Contrast that with other industry sectors where they've got much more integrated supply chains, where they're connected in real time. If you look at the retail sector or many of the logistics sectors, where an automotive and aerospace, there is a lot of just-in-time delivery from supply chains into factories, so they're able to pull the information they need. And we're starting to see some of those changes happening in construction. The platform approach where they're deploying off-site technologies, and they're looking at ways in which components and buildings can literally be built from kits of parts, brought together on site in a logical order and assembled quickly by teams on site with less risk. That's beginning to happen already. So we are seeing some steps forward, but we've got to address a lot of the fragmentation that we have at the moment and start to bring together much more integrated supply chains. And information has to be the glue that helps those supply chains work together efficiently. Know where each party is, know what information they need at different points in time, supply the right information at the right time, and then supply the products and components at the right time.
This makes sense, because at the end, information is what is linking those different groups or fragmentation tiers you spoke about it. It makes sense. It makes sense. So Paul, one more question from my side. I want you to take a few comments on the GIG and the government interoperativity group, in the industry group. Apart from the code of practice, what kind of members are you composed by the GIG, and what other developments do you provide?
There have been a number of strands to the work of the GIG. One of the most important strands has been looking from the client side, what they need to manage their assets. And it's not just simply one asset, one building. Most major clients, particularly the large government departments, may have hundreds of buildings or hundreds of assets. If we're talking about the Environment Agency in the UK, for example, they're looking not just after their own buildings, but they're looking after flood defences, coastal protection works, pumping stations, sluice gates, and all of those kinds of things. So they need to manage their information. And so the GIG has been developing the concept of what we call the Information Management Platform, which is a set or a modular approach, a set of technologies which help them make a very rational, create a very rational process through which they can specify, procure, and manage the delivery of those assets, and ensure that the information is available readily to their operational teams. Immediately upon completion of a new asset, it's added to the asset database. Yeah, we've also been talking about the procurement process. So I've talked about the power of the client in procurement to start to demand greater interoperability, and we've also started to look at what we're calling the standard information approach, which is trying to determine a more consistent industry approach to how information is defined, both perhaps from the procuring organization. They have their organizational information requirements, but then how that is broken down and split into particular information needs at different points in the process. We've got lots of organizations which have developed their own local practices. What we're trying to do is distill that into something which could be industry best practice and shared across lots of organizations, and create a much more consistent and coherent approach. We don't want, the idea here is that, the more we get the more consistent that clients can be, the more predictable supply chains can then be in delivering those requirements. They're not having to deal with different organizational information requirements, radically different organizational information requirements on every project. There should be some similarities, and when those similarities start to appear, then you've got more efficiency. You're working with a much more predictable and pragmatic process.
Lovely.
This is something we discussed with also Casey Rowland. I'm sure you also know him. That this any single team, group, tier, structure, company, whatever, is fighting creating their own structure. So that's, I think, the main issue for interoperativity, data flow, also data structure, creation of those harmonized templates. No, this is what we need to fight in a way, but not without overstepping on all the work which is done, because probably some of those local development, they are pretty good, that they can be extrapolated to general ones, but we need to sit together, and set together as well the global map.
Yeah, I mean, Casey and I are both involved with NEMA, and one of the things that we talk about is the importance of trusted, reliable data. And with trusted data, great things happen. This is the opportunity that we can get. Once we can trust that information, we know it's assured and reliable, we know it's accurate and complete, we can move forward with it. It's when there's doubt and we don't trust the information, that's when we start to maybe reconstitute it, redraw things, or remodel things. And that's when things slow down. That's where inefficiency creeps into the process. So we need to get that trust and reliability of information as a precursor to just about every key step in the process.
Fantastic.
Step in the process. I'm just a little bit concerned that we are building too many processes. That's being the process person, I'm worried about the processes. That's not good.
Yeah, I think the challenge we've had in the very fragmented industry is that every organization has had slightly different processes. The more you can be consistent, the more predictable it becomes, and people can move, move information around with confidence if they know what processes they're serving. It's when they move between different organizations and find that, oh, this client wants things in a slightly different way, and they then got to re-engineer their processes again. So getting more standardization, more people working to ISO standards, to ISO 19650 in the BIM environment, but all of the other standards that relate to other types of workflows are important as well. That's really where I think we'll start to see major steps forward in terms of efficiency, and hopefully major steps forward in terms of better interoperability.
I think one of the key elements what I see going through this whole discussion is really how the industry, IT industry, with all of the SaaS models work, and right now there was also all of the meetings you will see, you need to develop the APIs, and I think that's really the part of it which can go also for the construction industry. If you will have the request and return of the specific format from the manufacturer to the industry, to the construction company, etc., I think it will really help. I will really not want to intervene and change their internal process, how they manufacture the bricks or how they manufacture the concrete or how they manufacture, because this is their specialties and they know how to do this. But I would like to send a request saying, give me these things for this parameter. Possible, not possible. Not possible, it's false. So just I'm going for some other, and I think that can be really, that's, by the way, this is interoperability at the end. So anyway. That's good. Paul, really just great to have you with us.
It was a pleasure, Paul. Thank you for coming and introducing the Interoperativity Code of Practice, and spoke slightly more with those five pillars. If anyone, I guess, is accessible online, just go into the IT, so you can access to it and read all the information. I like what you said about making the industry more predictable. I think that's really important as well for us to, in terms of foresee supply chain and so on. So it's a good point brought to the table, something new here. So
I think it'd be useful to share. I think within the finished video, the link to the Code of Practice. We've got a QR code that you can put on the screen, and then people can scan that and access the Code of Practice live from its environment. So
fantastic. We will have the description on the video will be posted right there with the link. Don't worry about that, so people can access to it. Anything else from our guest, Peter, or will leave him go and enjoy the weekend?
We grill a little bit, Paul, just in the soft way. So today, so I think that's the Friday. So that's very good. And just thank you very much, Paul, for being with us. I think it was really just valuable lessons for us. We're still looking for the Nirvana state, and I hope one day we will get it. So
all right. Well, I'm still hopeful that it might happen before I retire. But when I retire, it is a completely different matter.
Well, I'm just, I'm not counting on I don't think my retirement will be much earlier than we will be able to change the construction industry. So it's a lot of work for us. So that's a good news as well. Okay, thank you very much. Enrique, thank you very much for pushing preparing and then just preparing the presentation. Great. Guys who just listen to the whole interview, thank you very, very much for staying till the end. Of course, you can browse it back and forth, etc. If you don't like something, let us know. If you like something, just push the button to subscribe, push to your network. Thank you very much for being with us, and thank you for listening to the BIM Cafe. It was great to have you, Paul, today.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Paul. Have a good day.